Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I have a cook with me. It's a meal prep video. However, you can take any of these recipes and make them for lunches or for dinners. You don't have to cook them all at once like I did. However, I do enjoy doing this because it saves me for the rest of the week, and also besides the fact that it saves time, it saves money, and it keeps you on track when you're trying to eat healthy. I am currently tracking my macros, but I hope that you all enjoyed this. Don't forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up, and let me know what type of cooking video you want to see next. Okay, so I'm starting out with all of the meat products. So if you are a vegan, just skip right through this part. We got 3 boxes of Butterball turkey burgers. These are my favorite turkey burgers. A rotisserie chicken, some turkey bacon. We also use a lot of turkey lunch meat. We get the maple honey, and then salmon, chicken breast, and chicken thighs. And of course, chicken nuggets for the kids. Now for dairy and eggs, I got egg whites, half and half. Of course, whipped cream, 2% milk, heavy cream for a recipe. This kind of cream cheese for a recipe. I get the kids these Stonyfield organic yogurts and some eggs. Of course, Uncrustables because it's a staple in our house. Hummus for snacks, Parmesan for a recipe as well, and then some butter lettuce for lunch this week. Spinach for my egg cups, shredded lettuce for taco night, Brussels sprouts and green beans just as side dishes. Apple juice. I got this balsamics instead of using dressing for myself because there's so many calories in dressing. Almond milk. I got the Reynolds crock pot liners as well as some parchment paper, and then Pledge for my refrigerator. Now for some snack and breakfast items: Tostito chips, pretzels, old-fashioned oats, chocolate checks, these little cookies the kids love, taco seasoning. This little sugar-free jello is for my protein cookie recipe that we'll be making in this video. Popcorn, the kids love that as a snack when they're watching a movie. Pumpkin for the protein cookies, diced tomatoes for a recipe, and Wacky Mac for the kids. And this was the last time I'm buying these muffins, I swear. Now for our produce: bananas, we love Pink Lady apples, grapes, some strawberries. We also got some avocado, garlic, broccoli, mango, peppers, a spaghetti squash. And then some onions, these little cucumbers. I love to dip these in hummus as a snack. These pickles are my favorite. I could like eat the whole jar, and a watermelon. Now let's get right into the recipes. So first I'm starting off with all of the meats and things like that. So I have my chicken breast, my chicken thighs. I'm going to put 2 chicken breasts in the crock pot with a little bit of chicken broth. And this just helps shred the chicken really, really well. So I'm starting this first thing in the morning. You'll see like I'm in my pajamas and everything. I recorded the haul the previous night, and then the next day is now when I'm doing all of these recipes. You can also look on my website if you want to see the written recipes. So first starting off with chicken breast, and then if I could get these chicken thighs into this bag, I'm just going to put them in the bag with some barbecue sauce, and we're going to grill them up in a couple of days. But instead of having that big packaging in the refrigerator, we'll just get these marinated right away. It gives them a really great flavor. Okay, so that's ready for another night. Now for tonight, we are having salmon, so I'm going to go ahead and marinate it now. Just do a little bit of salt and pepper, a little bit of garlic powder, If you have fresh lemon, use that. However, I forgot to get fresh lemon, so that's why we're using this. Now for some honey, and you'll notice in my video I'm not using exact measurements on anything because that's just not how I cook. If it's something that requires exact measurements, like the protein cookies for example, or you know, like some recipes you need exact. For this salmon, this is just a marinade. You don't need to be exact, and then I just put a little bit of butter on top and that's it. It's really simple and healthy, high in protein, low in carbs and sugar, and this is how it came out that evening. So now that I'm done with my chicken and my salmon, I'm just going to go ahead and sanitize this little area. The next thing I'm doing is just going to go ahead and cut up all of our produce that we're going to need for all of the recipes today. So instead of doing one recipe at a time, let's just cut up all the produce and be done with it. So here you'll see me cutting zucchini and squash from my garden, and I'm using this for a recipe. And I'm actually going to go ahead and just throw it in my KitchenAid and do really quick slices this way. I had a few larger carrots that were going to be going bad soon, so I threw them in here as well to shred them up for salads as well as for a recipe that we're making today. Here is all the produce that we have left to be cutting up as well. We have some tomatoes. There's the yellow squash and the zucchini we did. We have onions, peppers, broccoli, and at the bottom of that is Brussels sprouts all strained there. I have my fresh garlic, my spaghetti squash, and then our fruit. And just take everything out so you know what you have to cut and just go at it. Put on some music, listen to an audiobook, just do your thing, get it all cut up. It's actually super therapeutic. If you check out my video that I put up right before this, you're going to see some awesome kitchen gadgets. I am missing a lot of those kitchen gadgets when I filmed this video. I filmed this video in the very beginning of the week, but yeah, I could really have used those kitchen gadgets right about now. Okay, put the onions aside for our recipes, and now we're going to do our yellow squash. So what you do for this is just poke some holes in it, and then I'm going to put it in the microwave for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to let it cool off. But this just makes it insanely easy to cut in half. Otherwise, it could be really difficult. The broccoli I'm cutting ahead of time, and I'm just going to store it in a bag because the kids actually eat broccoli. I boil it or steam it, and if I boil it in chicken broth. They like it that way. I definitely recommend trying it like that. So we're just cutting it up so we have it ready to go. Now I'm cutting up tomatoes, pretty much just using everything up from my garden because I don't want it to go bad, and I'm going to use it in a delicious recipe that you'll see later. Unfortunately, this pepper is not from my garden. However, I will have peppers from my garden soon. They're just not big enough to pick yet. Now we're cutting up our Brussels sprouts, and those will be for dinner tonight. We're just going to roast them in the oven with some salt, pepper, and olive oil. You could also use garlic powder if you want to kick it up a notch. Now for our garlic, I wish I had my garlic press at this point, but I did not own it yet, so unfortunately I was doing things by hand today. Moving on to our fruit, I'm using my produce container that I love, as well as my grape cutter. I'm just going to go ahead and cut up the grapes for the kids. I don't do a ton of grapes at one time, just like probably enough for 2 days at a time. And then some strawberries. These produce containers are a big hit in my house and on the Beauty and the Beastons channel. I do have them linked in the description box below if you're interested in them. Moving on to our watermelon. This is a giant watermelon. I tried to pick ones that have a lot of veins and a little bit of yellow, and that's how I find a good watermelon. And just like that, all of our produce is cut up, and let's get right into our recipes for today. The first thing that we're making is turkey meatloaf. So I have a pound of turkey, ground turkey. You can use whatever like percentage fats you like and things like that. And I'm doing 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. To keep this recipe low carb, we're doing 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese, and that's going to bind everything together. You can use grated, is probably better than the shredded option. But yes, that's going to keep this low carb instead of using a binder like bread. Also use as much onion and pepper as you like. The recipe does call for 1 pepper and 1/2 of an onion. One thing you need to know about this recipe is that you do have to season it a lot. So I'm using onion pepper, garlic or onion powder, garlic powder, salt and pepper, and be generous with your seasoning because you need these seasonings to really give your dish some good flavor. You're also going to need 1 egg in there, and then just mix everything together really well and then shape it into a loaf, and then we're going to bake it in the oven. We're going to do it on 350 for 1 hour, but for the last 15 minutes you're going to let it bake uncovered. So first you're going to cover it up, and then the last 15 minutes let the cover off so it can get nice and brown. Alright, so while that's cooking, I grabbed my spaghetti squash out of the microwave, and you can see it's so much easier to cut this way. It had been sitting for a little bit, so it's not that hot anymore to cut. You do want to give it a little bit of time to cool down because it is really hot to cut if you just take it out of the microwave first. So we are making black bean pasta with a vegetable meat sauce. This is a recipe I made up that is so delicious. So what we're going to do first is just throw the spaghetti squash also in the oven at the same time with the meatloaf. You can look up, Google any way to bake spaghetti squash. I would recommend doing that because some people like to do it on 450 for a shorter period of time. But since I'm already making the meatloaf, I'm just letting it cook in the oven on 350. So while that bakes, I'm just heating up some olive oil, adding some onion and some salt into my pot. I'm gonna let the onion get nice and browned and translucent, and then I'm going to add in my tomatoes. I'm not really going crazy with measurements here. Use however many onions you like, however many tomatoes you like. The reason I'm using all of these tomatoes is because, like I said, a lot of them came from my garden and I needed to use them before they were going to go bad. So pretty much this recipe, you can adjust it so that, well, here's some steam. Adjust it so you can use whatever vegetables that may be going bad in your house or need to get used up. All you have to do is just let everything cook down. So like also this for the zucchini and the squash, I definitely recommend using zucchini and squash in this recipe just because it gives it an amazing flavor. It's a ton of nutrients and it's delicious and it's really good this time of year. Now I'm just adding some garlic, and don't get too caught up with measurements. I used to be like that. You know your tastes. If you like a lot of garlic, use a lot of garlic. If you like a lot of onion, use a lot of onion. You can kind of eyeball it and just see what looks right. I'm also adding these shredded carrots. Again, this recipe is just using what I have on hand that needs to get used up. And again, I said this recipe came out so delicious. So while all that cooks, I'm just browning some ground turkey, and then I'm going to mix all of that together with the ground turkey. I'm adding 1 jar of tomato sauce into this just to really give it some more flavor and help bind everything together into a true sauce. If you don't like big chunks of vegetable, you could always do the vegetables first and then like puree them and then add the sauce. However, I love all the textural difference of this recipe. I really like to have multiple textures in my food. Alright, so I'm going to let that simmer down, and now for the black bean pasta, I'm going to just throw that in right on top of this dish. You can boil it first if you want to do that, but I'm just letting it soak in this dish. I'm going to cover it and let it all cook together. This black bean pasta, the texture's a little different, but the taste is delicious. You can find this at Costco, that's where I got mine, but it's 25 grams of protein for serving, which is huge. That's a lot of protein, and it's very low carb compared to most pastas. So while that's cooking, our turkey meatloaf finished, and now the spaghetti squash is finished as well. So I'm making it in this big tin because I'm also giving some to my sister who recently had a baby, so that her and her husband could just heat it up in the oven real quick and have an easy, quick dinner and not have to worry about it. But now that I'm recording this video, I can tell you this recipe was delicious. They loved it and I loved it. It was just such a good recipe. The black bean pasta mixed with the spaghetti squash gave it like such a good, like savory yet kind of a sweet taste. It's so good. What's also cool about this dish as well as the meatloaf is that you can freeze them and use them later as well. If you're not into black bean pasta, because I know a lot of people are picky with healthy options like that, use whatever pasta you want. And there's like chickpea pastas and things like that if you're trying to be healthier. But I love the black bean pasta. It's gluten-free, it's high in protein, and I love the taste. Moving on to our chicken fajita soup. This is my favorite soup. It's so good. So I made the chicken breast ahead of time. I did 2 chicken breasts and then I cooked it with some chicken broth on high for 4 hours. So I'm going to let that sit in the crock pot while I do this, and I'm just cooking up. We're doing 1 onion, 1 green pepper, and 3 garlic cloves with 1 tablespoon of butter. So I'm doing that, and then I'm going to add 6 ounces of cream cheese. And when I add the cream cheese, I'm going to try to smush it into the vegetables so that it melts evenly and so that it distributes through the soup evenly. I have to say, this Dutch oven is everything. They're expensive and they're super heavy and like they're not like the easiest thing in the world, but they are so worth the money. I got it on Black Friday last year, but that brown on the bottom that you just saw, that is going to give our soup so much flavor. So now that that is all cooked and everything, all I'm doing is adding in 1 packet of taco seasoning. I'm doing 2 10-ounce cans of tomatoes with chilies. And if you don't like spicy, use just regular tomatoes without the chilies. The chili gives it a nice spice, but not like too much spice. I also did 2.5 cups of chicken broth and some heavy cream. It was a 1/2 cup of the heavy whipping cream, and then I just added my chicken, stirred it all around, and technically it's done right now, but I let it simmer for a while just to really like marry the flavors together. But I ate this soup for lunch every single day this week and was not sick of it at all. It was so delicious. And of course you can add a little bit of shredded cheese to this. You can also add shredded cheese to that pasta dish. Okay, now for the protein cookies. These are a pain to make until you're used to it. You need like a lot of things. You need a food scale. You need cake pop protein. There's a specific protein that tastes really good in this recipe. So those are some things that you'll need to get for this. You're also going to need vanilla protein. So luckily you can order these things on Amazon if you want to prime them, but it's worth it, you guys. I'm telling you, especially if you're like really trying to be good with your macros and be low carb, this recipe is delicious. The serving size is for 6 cookies, and 6 cookies is only about 176 calories before the icing and 26 grams of protein. The icing is so good for you too because that also uses protein. So let's get into this recipe. I'm going to give you the recipe for 6 cookies. However, I'm making a larger batch, so that's why you'll see my scale saying some different things. So you're going to need 90 grams of pumpkin, 50 grams of egg white, 26 grams of cake pop protein, 2 grams of cheesecake pudding powder, and you're going to do sugar-free for that, and then you're going to do 2 grams, which is 1/4 of a teaspoon of baking powder. So that's what you're going to use for the cookie itself. For the icing, you're going to use 10 grams of vanilla protein powder, 2 grams of coconut flour, 30 grams of non-fat plain Greek yogurt, and then just a tiny splash of cold water. So I'm going to go ahead and mix all of my ingredients and do that. And I'm telling you, it seems like so extra, this recipe. I agree. When I make it, I get annoyed every time, but it saves me. I don't have a sweet tooth. Like I do have a sweet tooth, which is why these are great. But you know, like I don't have a sweet tooth for other stuff. When I have my like sweet tooth cravings, I just grab a cookie out of the refrigerator, because you do want to keep them in the fridge, and it just like satisfies my craving. I also made these for my sister as well. Like I said, she has a new baby, and she loves them too. Trust me, it's a lot of work, but it's 100% worth it. My girlfriend, Kate, actually told me about this recipe, and she found it from somebody on Instagram, so I just want to give credit there. When I first made these, I was just like, what was I thinking? Because I like to use minimal ingredients, you know. I don't like to use a ton of stuff, but I debated even sharing it with you because, like I said, I like to show you very easy recipes, but I really think that this is what helped me get the extra, I don't want to say fat because I'm not fat, but like literally the fat off of my belly, because I have such a sweet tooth that, you know, I would always want something sweet when I was done eating. And when I have these, they are filling and they are delicious and super high in protein. They help me hit my macro goals because I was always really lacking in protein, and I would go over on my carbs. Another thing I ordered on Amazon since making this video was like a cookie dough scooper, just so that your cookies are more uniform in shape and they all cook evenly, and then you have like the same nutritional value per each cookie. So I do recommend a cookie scooper if you want that as well. But like I said, once you make this recipe, you'll be super happy. I also just ordered chocolate protein, some more, because I used all of mine, so that I could make these cookies in the chocolate version. So you're going to go ahead and bake these on 350 for about 12 to 15 minutes depending on your oven. Now I'm just making the icing. So I'm mixing the dry ingredients, and then I'm going to mix in the Greek yogurt with it, and then a little bit of cold water, not too much cold water, because you don't want it to be like a watery consistency. You want the icing to be nice and thick. And I'm going to throw it in the fridge until the cookies are ready and cooled off. Now I'm just going to icing them and put them in the fridge. I'm telling you this to be honest, they're not as good when they're warm. You'll want to put them in the fridge. They're a cold cookie that helps satisfy your craving and is really, really good. I don't like using the term diet because I don't like to diet. Dieting makes me sad. But I kind of use like counting macros with like my intuition of eating. If I'm hungry, I'm going to eat. I think it's really sad when you're hungry and you starve your body. It's not like, I just don't like that, and I don't promote that. This isn't about being skinny. This is about being healthy and strong and living a long life for your kiddos. So I hope that you all enjoyed this video. If you want the actual written recipes, check out my website, tiffanybeaston.com. I'll have it linked below. But all of my recipes, I try to do them pretty easily, healthy with minimal ingredients. I hope that you all enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up.